Dear friends, I'm a psychologist who has spent over 30 years working closely with older adults, whether in nursing homes, mental health clinics, or home counseling sessions. And the longer I do this work, the more I realize aging isn't the downhill slide many people imagine it to be. It's more like a sunset, no longer blazing like the midday sun, but warm, gentle, and breathtakingly beautiful if we learn to slow down and truly see it. I still remember an autumn afternoon in New York. I had just finished a group conversation with some seniors at a community center. As I was getting ready to leave, I noticed an elderly man sitting quietly by the window, his clouded eyes glistening with tears. His name was John Miller, 83 years old, living alone since his wife passed away. I sat next to him and asked, "If you could go back in time, is there anything you'd do differently?" He gave me a tired smile and said softly, "If I weren't 83, if I could be 60 again, I'd live completely differently." Have you ever heard someone say that before? My dear friends, if there's one thing people over 80 often tell me, it's this: I didn't take care of my health when I should have. Let me tell you about Mr. Robert Carter, a tall, slender man with deep-set eyes who used to work in the railway service. I met him during a group interview at a geriatric hospital, where he was being treated for heart disease. Sitting beside me, he kept wiping his glasses with a handkerchief. Not because they were dirty, but because his eyes wouldn't stop watering. When I was 61, my wife complained of a headache, he began slowly. I told her, "It's nothing, just rest a little. I was busy with work and didn't take her to the doctor." He paused, his thin shoulders trembling. 3 years later, doctors diagnosed her with late-stage brain cancer. 6 months after that, she was gone. If only I had taken her to the hospital back then. If only I had held her hand. Friends, I've lost count of how many times I've heard people say, "if only." But something about Robert's words stuck with me. Perhaps because in his eyes, the same eyes that once watched countless trains leave the station, all that remained was a moment that could never return. One wrong decision, or more accurately, one delay, left him carrying a deep regret for the rest of his life. And it made me wonder, what are you putting off right now? A routine checkup? A morning walk? Quitting smoking or eating better? Maybe you're thinking, "I feel fine." But did you know, according to research from Seoul National University, 85% of your quality of life in the 20 years after age 60 is determined by the habits you build at 60? I call this the age 60 rule. Imagine turning 60 as reaching a bend on a mountain road. If you steer in the right direction, the journey ahead will be smooth and steady. If you don't, you might find yourself sliding down a slope you never saw coming. If there's anything that frightens older adults more than heart disease, high blood pressure, or joint pain, it's memory loss. No one wants to live a life where they forget their grandchildren's names, get lost trying to return home, or have to rely entirely on others just to get through the day. I'll never forget Mr. William Davis, 88 years old, sitting in a wheelchair in the exam room. His hands were dry and cracked, and his eyes stared out the window like he was trying to remember something long gone. With a trembling voice, he said, "Just 5 years ago, I was hiking with my friends. I was strong and rarely got sick. And now, I can't even go to the bathroom by myself." I pulled up his brain MRI scan and explained gently, as if speaking to a family member. Your body didn't suddenly break down. It started 20 years ago, when you stopped regular physical activity and slowly lost muscle mass. And muscle doesn't just affect your arms and legs, it affects your brain too. Did you know? Starting in our 60s, if we don't stay active, We lose 2 to 3% of our muscle mass each year. And muscle is like a little factory that delivers oxygen and blood to the brain. Losing muscle means the brain gets less fuel, memory starts to fade. But here's the amazing part. We can reverse that with just 3 minutes a day. The simple exercise I always teach my patients is this: heel lifts. Yes, I know, it doesn't sound like it has anything to do with memory, but this was a major finding from a neurology research team at a top university hospital in Seoul. After 10 years of study, they discovered that this movement increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates the hippocampus, the area responsible for memory, and reduces the risk of Alzheimer's by up to 85%. Here's how to do it. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart. Slowly raise your heels so your weight shifts onto the balls of your feet. Hold for 3 seconds, then slowly lower back down. Repeat about 20 times. If you're thinking, "I'm too weak for that," don't worry. You can hold on to the back of a chair, the edge of a bed, or lean against a wall for support. If standing isn't possible, you can even do it while sitting down. Just lift your heels while keeping your toes on the floor. It still works beautifully. I remember Ms. Susan Thompson, now 82, who used to be quite hesitant about exercise. At age 65, she was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. "The doctor said I was at high risk for Alzheimer's," she once shared, eyes misty but full of strength. "A neurologist taught me this heel lift exercise. I doubted it, but I tried. I've done it for 17 years. And today, I still remember every one of my grandchildren's names, I still live on my own, and I still read every day." And that's exactly what I want to emphasize. Big changes always start with something small. Dear friends, to me, growing older is like tending a garden. If you care for it each day, water it, pull the weeds, and fertilize it at the right time, then no matter how dry the soil once was, flowers can still bloom. I've seen many health gardens come to life at age 70 or even 80, simply because their owners started tending to them at 60. Today, I want to share with you 5 golden habits, simple, easy to follow, and powerful enough to transform your life if you stick to them. The first habit is walking for 30 minutes each day. It may sound too simple to matter, right? But don't underestimate it. Studies show that walking for just 30 minutes a day can reduce your risk of Alzheimer's by up to 65%. On top of that, it boosts your immune system, lifts your mood, and improves sleep. I often tell my patients, you don't need to walk fast. You don't need to go far. Just be consistent. If you can't make it to the park, walk around the house. If 30 minutes feels like too much, break it into 3 10-minute sessions. It's still great for your health. The second habit is staying hydrated. Around 2 liters of water a day. Many older adults don't feel thirsty and often forget to drink, which can lead to fatigue, dizziness, constipation, and even confusion. I usually recommend keeping 3 500-milliliter water bottles in familiar spots, by the sofa, next to the bed, and in the kitchen. Every time you see a bottle, it's your reminder to take a sip. No need to gulp down a lot at once. Just drink steadily throughout the day. Sleep is the third key I want to highlight. Getting 7 hours of good sleep each night is one of the most powerful natural remedies. Just sleeping well can cut your risk of heart disease and depression by up to 45%. For those who struggle to sleep, don't rush to medication. Try turning off your phone, TV, or computer at least an hour before bed. Sip a warm glass of milk. Listen to soft music. If you wake up in the middle of the night, don't panic. Just lie still, relax, breathe slowly and deeply. Your body is still healing even then. After age 60, muscle mass begins to decline significantly, which is why the fourth habit, eating enough protein, is so important. Protein helps maintain strength, prevent falls, and keep the body resilient. You don't need fancy supplements or expensive cuts of meat. Choose easy-to-digest foods like eggs, fish, tofu, or yogurt. If your teeth aren't strong, try green bean porridge or shredded chicken soup. 3 balanced meals a day. That's your best investment in your own body. And lastly, have a hobby. I truly believe that a simple hobby can be a beam of light in the quiet room of old age. It keeps the mind sharp and has even been shown to slow cognitive decline by up to 40%. One of my 75-year-old patients is learning to play the ukulele. An 80-year-old woman wakes up early every morning to tend her garden. And a 78-year-old gentleman still enjoys collecting postage stamps. You don't have to be great at it. You just have to enjoy it. Just having something to look forward to each day is enough to give life meaning. Let me tell you about a special patient, Ms. Emily Johnson, now 73 years old. 10 years ago, at 63, she was diagnosed with high blood pressure, prediabetes, and osteoporosis. She was overwhelmed, scared that her life was headed downhill. But she chose to change. She began practicing all 5 golden habits I've just shared: morning walks, regular hydration, getting enough sleep, eating more protein, and starting a new hobby, cross-stitching, something she never imagined she'd enjoy. Every morning she gets up early, takes a stroll around the neighborhood, then makes herself a warm glass of water with honey. She told me, "Every healthy day is a victory." Now, 10 years later, her health is even better than when she was 60. She doesn't need medication, doesn't need a caregiver, and always walks into the clinic with a bright smile. She is living proof of what I've always believed. It's not supplements, not doctors, but you who hold the power to heal your own aging. Dear friends, I used to think that as long as we retired with a large enough nest egg, old age would be peaceful. But after years of sitting down with hundreds of older adults, I've come to understand something important. Money won't last if we don't know how to manage it. I still remember Mr. James Wilson, now 84 years old, once a respected teacher. When he retired, he received a pension payout of $200,000. I thought, how could I ever spend all that money? He chuckled. But behind that smile was a deep sense of regret. He began doing all the things he had always dreamed of but never had time for. Traveling, learning to play golf, enjoying life. It all felt like a well-deserved reward after decades of hard work. But the spending quietly crept up, little by little, like water slipping through your fingers. Then one day, illness struck without warning. Medical bills, prescriptions, home care, costs he had never considered, began eating away at what once seemed like an endless fund. In just 3 years, half of my pension was gone, he sighed. Now I'm afraid to turn on the heater. I've given up even the smallest pleasures. If only I had managed it more wisely. Mr. Wilson's story is not uncommon. According to a survey by the National Retirement Fund, over half of retirees with more than $200,000 in savings ran into financial trouble within just the first 5 years. And those 5 years are often the most dangerous, when we feel we've earned the right to enjoy life. It's a very human feeling, and entirely understandable. But if we're not careful, that very feeling can make our later years much harder than they need to be. Have you ever found yourself thinking that way? If so, take a moment to pause and ask, do I have a clear financial plan? Am I spending based on emotion? I once worked with Linda Harris, a retirement asset management expert, who shared a principle I still use today. As soon as you retire, don't keep all your money in one place. Divide it into 4 accounts. daily expenses, emergency funds, healthcare, and long-term savings. This simple strategy helps you stay in control of your spending and eases the anxiety of watching your savings disappear without understanding where it went. Let me share one more story with Mr. Thomas Brown, who's been retired for 19 years. When I visited, he lived in a cozy little apartment. On the table was a warm cup of tea and a notebook, neatly tracking every expense. "I'm not rich," he told me, "but I've never felt poor." His secret? He followed the same 4-account rule. Every month, he withdrew a set amount, divided it clearly into categories, and always kept one untouched reserve, used only in emergencies. "Don't let yourself end up asking your children for money," he told me, his eyes lighting up. Not out of pride, but because financial independence is the last true freedom in old age. So, how can we protect our finances in later life? I want to share with you 4 simple principles that could change your future. First, don't spend based on emotions. Before buying anything, ask yourself, "Do I really need this?" Second, always keep a fund for medical emergencies. Health is unpredictable, but it always costs money. Third, set aside a savings account you never touch. Consider it your personal peace-of-mind insurance. Fourth, never support your children financially with more than 10% of your total assets. It's a delicate topic, but a crucial one. I've seen too many parents sacrifice everything for their children, only to end up lacking, lonely, and sometimes even regretting not keeping something for themselves. Dear friends, a happy old age isn't just about living long. It's about living without dependence and without anxiety every time you check your bank balance. That kind of peace doesn't come from luck. It comes from planning, starting today. Whether you're 60 or already into your 70s, it's never too late to get your finances in order. Start today so you can enjoy a retirement that is peaceful, independent, and truly your own. If you found this message helpful, please like it, share it with your loved ones, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow along as we continue this journey towards a meaningful life in our later years. Dear friends, have you ever sat alone in a quiet room, a small lamp casting its glow on the phone, sitting silently on the table, just hoping it would ring? One ring, one message, one small check-in. It may seem trivial, but it can soothe a heart that feels empty. I once met Mrs. Mary Evans, 78 years old, at a senior activity center in Gyeonggi. She was a neat, graceful woman, her face lined with age but always well put together. When I asked her, "Do you talk with your children and grandchildren often?" She gave a soft smile, but her eyes wandered toward the window. "Waiting for the phone to ring," she said, "but the kids didn't call today." That one sentence hit me like a lump in my throat. According to a study in South Korea, loneliness increases the risk of death in older adults by up to 45%, higher than both obesity and heart disease. That means loneliness can silently take a life even faster than the illnesses we commonly fear. The danger is, the more we fear loneliness, the easier it is to fall deeper into its grip. After her husband passed away, Mrs. Mary called her children every day, hoping they'd come visit on the weekend. She tried to keep the conversation cheerful, but inside, there was a hollow space no words could fill. Eventually, her children began to feel pressured and started to pull away. So how do we overcome loneliness in a healthy, positive way? One of the simplest ways is to find a personal hobby. A hobby is like a bridge that reconnects you with yourself. It doesn't have to be anything grand, just something that makes you feel excited to wake up in the morning. I have a patient, 81 years old, who is learning watercolor painting. Another, 76, spends an hour every day playing mahjong. These simple activities keep the brain agile and the heart filled with anticipation. The second way is to maintain regular social interaction. Just joining a group activity 2 or more times a week can significantly lower your risk of depression. You don't need to travel far or be in a big crowd. It could be a book club at the local community center, a morning walking group in your neighborhood, or a Tai Chi class at a church, temple, or nearby rec center. Where there's someone who listens, there's a place for connection. The third way, and perhaps the most meaningful of all, is helping others. You don't need to do anything huge. Volunteer at a community kitchen, read stories to children, or help a fellow senior learn to use a smartphone. When you give, you rediscover your sense of value, and that quiet fulfillment fills up the empty spaces in your heart in the warmest way. Let me tell you about Mrs. Helen Parker, 83 years old, a woman I deeply admire. After her husband passed away, she barely spoke to anyone for 3 years. She lived in silence, closed off from the world, buried in her sorrow. But one day she asked herself, "How long do I want to keep living like this?" From that moment, she divided each day into 3 clear parts: social time, to meet with friends, neighbors, and chat with classmates in her smartphone class; growth time, to read, learn basic English, or try new recipes she found on YouTube; and solitude time, to write in her journal, meditate, and listen to her inner voice. She told me that these quiet moments helped her understand herself better and forgive her past. Now she no longer fears the silence of night. That stillness, she said, has become the most peaceful place inside me. Friends, loneliness isn't darkness. It's like an empty room, and if you fill it with meaning, it can become the warmest, most comforting space you know. Start with something small: a phone call to an old friend, a cup of tea with a neighbor, or even a comment under this post. If today's message touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you love, so that together we can age not in loneliness, but in connection and love. I've seen too many fathers and mothers, thin, bent with age, quietly hiding their financial struggles just to leave behind something for their children. I've also met those who gave away everything to their kids, hoping for love and care in return, only to live out their days alone in a nursing home, never visited, never called. One of the stories that haunts me the most is about Mr. David Clark, who is now 84 years old. I met him during a survey at a private nursing home in New York. His room was quite simple, with just an old photograph of him and his 3 sons placed beside his bed. "The day I gave all my assets to my children, I thought I was doing the right thing," he said thoughtfully, his gaze drifting as if searching for long-lost memories. "I thought it would make them care more about me." Then he smiled sadly, his voice growing choked with emotion. "But now I only get to see one of them every year, during the new year if I'm lucky." My heart tightened. Mr. David's story is not unique. Many parents have believed, if I give my children everything, they will be grateful and love me more. But the truth is, affection cannot be bought with money, and sincere love should never come with conditions or expectations. I think of Mrs. Nancy Adams, 72 years old, a mother I deeply admire for her strength and wisdom. From an early age, she made it clear to her children, "The way I love you is by staying healthy and financially independent. That way, I'm not a burden, and I don't have to sacrifice anything to expect something in return." Thanks to this, her children grew up self-sufficient, always showing appreciation and caring for her out of genuine love, not obligation or duty. So, what's the reasonable boundary when it comes to helping our children? And how do we maintain the balance between love and self-sufficiency? I'd like to share with you 4 golden principles gathered from many real-life stories throughout my career. First, old age is your responsibility. Before thinking about helping your children, ask yourself, if I don't receive anything in return, will I still be okay? Don't give away all your assets and live in insecurity. Keep what you need, not out of selfishness, but because you deserve to live safely and comfortably after all the years of hard work. Second, set clear boundaries. If you want to help, don't hesitate to be direct. This is the maximum amount I can support. Beyond that, I cannot. Being straightforward doesn't reduce affection. In fact, it helps maintain respect and clarity between generations. Third, separate emotions from finances. Love doesn't always have to be expressed through money. Your presence, your words of encouragement, your genuine conversations, that's the foundation of a strong, lasting relationship. And finally, you need the courage to let your children fall. Though it pains you, if you always shield them, they'll never learn how to stand on their own. You can't live their lives for them, but you can be a model of resilience and strength. Being a parent is a noble calling, but that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice everything to expect a return. You can love, you can support, but don't trade your peace of mind in old age just to keep a connection that should come from mutual understanding and willingness. I once heard a saying that has stayed with me. Children need their parents when they are young. But parents also need their children when they grow old. Affection is a two-way street. If only one side keeps moving, the other will gradually drift away. If you're thinking about helping your children, take a moment to pause and reconsider. With all the love, but also with clarity and boundaries. Help them grow, but not to the point where you lose your own peace of mind. And if you're raising children, teach them to understand this early, so one day they will know how to love you in the right way, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude and genuine affection. Dear friends, if you've listened this far, I want to say something from the heart. You still have so much time to live a fulfilling old age. Don't wait. Start today. By being grateful, taking care of your health, managing your finances, loving your children the right way, and connecting with life in a way that feels meaningful to you. If this journey can help you or someone you love, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share this post with your parents, friends, those who also deserve to have a happy old age just like you. We will all grow old, but we can grow old in happiness, in freedom, and in love. Wishing you a peaceful day. And if you can, today, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They could be as simple as, I'm still alive. I still have time. I have the power to change.